Hello and welcome to today's English lesson. My name is Stuart. In today's lesson, we're looking at words and expressions we use when we talk about globalization. Let's go to the intro. Now, as I said, today's lesson is looking at this topic here, which is globalization. And whether we like it or not, we are living in a more and more globalized world where we have some problems and other things associated to this topic. Now, all of these words are associated with globalization, and we can use these words when we want to talk about this topic. So, let's have a look. Now, a key aspect of globalization is the role of corporations or companies, otherwise known as multinationals. And the idea of the multinationals in a globalized world or in globalization is that they're able to do business in different countries. Okay, we can see that here in Europe we have similar brands to the States. In the States we have similar brands to Australia, etc., etc. So the idea of the multinational is to spread their products around the world and do business internationally in the global economy. Or they do global business or global trade or commerce, global business, global trade or global commerce. That is the idea. Some companies or multinationals have been operating for a long time. Car companies, Coca-Cola is an example of a company. McDonald's is a company that is now basically all over the world. Okay, so there's not many countries in the world you can go to and not find McDonald's. Clothing companies are also other examples of multinationals. Banks. Again, some banks do business in a lot of different countries. So they're doing global business, global trade, or global commerce. Now, globalization has led to a society in which consumption or consumerism is the number one aspect of many, many people's lives. We need to consume. We consume products. This is known as consumerism. Consumerism has led to a phenomenon which is outsourcing, where many companies don't source their products locally. They source them from another country where it's cheaper for them to be made. For example, our clothes are often made in a country somewhere where it's a lot cheaper for the clothing to be produced. So very rarely nowadays in Europe do you buy clothing that is made in Europe. It is made in Asia. So this is the concept of outsourcing. This has led to another concept which is called sweatshops. And sweatshops are the places where these clothes are produced. Not necessarily clothes, because also with technology, a lot of technological products or technology products are also produced in sweatshops, apparently. But clothing is the one that has most come to light over the last 20 or 30 years. A lot of companies have had scandals because of the clothes being produced in sweatshops. I think Nike maybe had a problem a few years ago. Other clothing companies have been accused of producing their goods or their clothes in sweatshops. The working poor is also a concept that we can associate nowadays with globalization. It means that because these manufacturing jobs have been moved offshore or they have been outsourced, it means that people in developed countries are now having to work for lower wages. And this has created a concept of working poor, where people work for very low salaries or very low wages, and sometimes they have trouble to make ends meet. So they are known as the working poor. Globalization, we can also talk about equality and inequality. Okay, one of the ideas, I think, probably originally of globalization was equality, but it seems to be leading to more inequality, and the rich seem to be getting richer and the poor seem to be getting poorer. And this is causing a lot of people to be upset at the moment. Basically, it's related to the distribution of wealth. The distribution of wealth, meaning that the world's wealth is not distributed evenly. So there is a bad distribution of wealth. You can hear concepts like the 1% of the population has all the wealth and 99% don't. So sometimes this 99%, I think there was a protest last year where 99, they called themselves the 99, and they decided to protest against the inequalities associated to globalization. Some people also complain of a loss of identity, that we are all becoming very homogeneous, that we're all becoming very similar. And a lot of the products, as we mentioned before, things are becoming quite ubiquitous. For example, clothing, ubiquitous to find Levi jeans, for example. Zara clothes, for example, becoming ubiquitous. Mobile telephones, Samsung, these brands, Apple products are becoming ubiquitous around the world. We're all becoming quite similar, and some people complain that we're losing our identity. We have developed countries or developed economies. We also have developing countries and developing economies. Now, we used to say, years ago, we used to say rich countries, poor countries. We also use the term first world and third world, but we don't hear those terms as much anymore. We hear developed and developing economies more than first and third world. Basically, as a result of the inequality and the loss of identity and the poor distribution of wealth, we have an anti-capitalist movement or an anti-globalization movement that quite often protest about the state of the world. And sometimes these protests can turn to riots, and riots are normally when a protest becomes violent and sometimes noisy and violent, and people can end up getting hurt. So basically all of these words here we can incorporate into our vocabulary to talk about globalization. Thank you very much for watching the lesson. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. Question of the day: are you in favor of globalization or are you anti-globalization? Leave your comment below. Remember to share the video on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Google+. Share it up on social media. I'll see you in the next lesson. Have a good day. Bye.